Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here live on the Cover One YouTube channel each and every Monday night when we do them. I am your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined this and every week by David Fox. And today we have, I guess it's a celebratory episode of the Cover One Roundup, though it's the first that we've done. It's the first podcast that we've done since the big thing that happened.
Yeah.
We'll get into some of that, I'm sure. As you can see, we're how we started the show, and then the three there on the screen. This is a celebration of Damar Hamlin, and it's also a celebration of the Buffalo Bills' 35-23 victory over the New England Patriots yesterday, and a celebration of their upcoming Miami Dolphins wild card round matchup that we're going to talk about. So yeah, that's what we're doing today. We're talking about briefly about this Bills win over the Patriots. Again, a cathartic win, a very much needed win, emotional win. We'll get into all that. And then also we're going to break down this Dolphins matchup because Lord knows we have not seen enough of the Dolphins this year, David.
No, absolutely not. We definitely needed to play them
just one more time
again, which, like, I don't know. I mean, there was no matchup that I was overly excited about, right? Like, the Dolphins again, the Patriots again, the Steelers, who, like, sure, they're beatable, but they're just annoying, and I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, I guess I'll take beating the Dolphins again. That's fine. I'll take that.
I do believe on our the podcast that we did after the Bills Week 15 win over the Dolphins, one of the truer rubbish segments or questions in that segment was, will the Bills see the Dolphins again? And I believe you said no, and thank God. Like, because
No. I said that about the Jets. I said that about the Jets. Yes, because I was tired. I was totally tired of playing the Jets, just based on how those two games went. Like, Dolphins, that first game was annoying, but it was more frustrating than anything else just because of the way that ended up playing out. But the Jets was just like, oh my God, I need this game to be over. It's annoying. It's dumb. It's frustrating. There's no fun out of this game. Either of those games. Both of those games were awful watches.
Yeah, awful. And thankfully, we'll get into the Dolphins. There are some interesting things to say about the Dolphins. And we'll get into a lot more on this podcast. Here's what we're talking about today. The Roundup rundown, if you will. We are going to get into our takeaways from the Patriots game, emotions and whatnot. That's really what it boils down to. Bills versus Dolphins wildcard preview. True or rubbish, and more probably. And like I said on Twitter, there is certainly nothing else you could be watching during this time. I cannot
absolutely not. Definitely not in 25 minutes and some odd seconds.
Right. I cannot think of anything else you would rather be watching. I cannot think of anything else a football fan would rather be watching than this show right here.
In the immortal words of the great Marv Levy, where would you rather be than right here, right now, on the Cover One Roundup podcast with Kyle Silagyi and David Fox? Those are Marv Levy's words, all of them.
Yeah, right. Yes. And like his team kind of did get confused when he kind of went to the ramble there at the end about the Cover One Roundup. So it has been shortened, but no, you're right, David. That is the direct quote. All right. Before we get in to any of the good stuff that you're here for, the analysis and whatnot, we have to. I want to do the make like Terry Pagula and pay the bills joke that I've done before and have done before. But I saw it on TikTok. Somebody made a similar joke on TikTok, and that went semi-viral. So I don't want people to think that I stole a joke from TikTok, which, I mean, like, look, literally the True or Rubbish segment is a stolen joke from TikTok. But, like, I don't want to be associated with stolen Bills jokes. It's not what I do. I make my own Bills jokes. I'll steal other ones. Okay, so this show and Cover One in general are brought to you by BetUS, who we will hear from right now via our colleague, Greg.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between 2 exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500 or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.
Thank you, BetUS. And also a thank you to Underdog Fantasy, yet another sponsor of this show and Cover One in general. David, can you tell us a little bit about Underdog?
I would love to tell everyone about our favorite fantasy football website, and that is Underdog Fantasy. Now, if you didn't get to pick Josh Allen in your home league, actually, frankly, since everyone's leagues are over, the regular season is over, fantasy football regular season is over, now you kind of have to go to a place like Underdog Fantasy because you can pick things like the Pick'em contest where you can win money predicting if Josh Allen will go over his yard totals, his touchdowns, his completions, and more. If you think Allen Diggs is going to blow up this week, you can put them both in your Pick'em. If you think John Brown, that young guy who might just become a star, up-and-coming receiver in this NFL, he's going you can select to see if he's going to catch a 36-yard touchdown on a rope rolling to Josh Allen's right. If you predict up to 5 different over-unders correctly, you can win 20 times your original money. Use the promo code COVER1, that's the number 1, when signing up to make your first deposit, and Underdog will match that deposit up to $100. That is 100 free US dollars in free play if you use promo code COVER1. Even with inflation, that is a phenomenal deal. Sign up today and start winning.
Thank you, Underdog Fantasy and BetUS. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Speaking of fantasy, David.
Yes.
I won.
Wow. And
I
that's
won
what
my
you got.
I got the signed Corey Davis helmet. This is the Corey Davis Memorial Trophy.
Helmet.
It's a long story. There's lore. There's a backstory.
Of course there is.
Yes. But I won after a week of debate. I did pull a UCF 2017 and just claimed the championship and said I won it. And now I have the trophy. So,
well, hold on. How is there a debate on how you won or didn't win did you tie? Did you tie in this final game?
No, I entered the Buffalo Bills Cincinnati Bengals week 17 clash, needing a combined 9 points from Tyler Bass and Joe Mixon. They got me a combined 4 in 10 minutes, and then ultimately the game could not be played. So I just said, no, I win.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no, I would have won. And now I have it. Right, Collins writes, I knew it. Kyle's a closet Jets fan. A big Corey Davis guy. Huge Corey Davis fan. Okay.
He was your original LaVisca Chenault. And you never forget your first.
You never forget your first Western Michigan wide receiver.
That's right.
Though I might be a bigger Dwayne Eskridge fan, to be honest. Okay, moving forward. Let's get into the Roundup. We usually don't do this segment because there's it's whatever. Oh, but we do have some big news to talk about today. Damar Hamlin is home. And by that, I mean Buffalo. I don't know. I don't want to say anything because I don't know for sure, but I did read today that he is back in Buffalo, left the University of Cincinnati hospital or whatever, which is just, I mean, look, everything that needs to be said about Damar Hamlin has been said. Very sad situation, but the response from just the world, the sports world, the country in general, has been reassuring and really great to see. And I'm very happy that he is on track to making a complete recovery here. He is on a normal to accelerated track, as they put on, or as the doctor said today in a statement. Awesome stuff, and I think that's really all that can be said here.
Yeah, I mean, given where he was last week, just the fact that he made significant progress pretty much every day, I think was just a great, it's just great. You know, the fact that he was, obviously in just such a bad way to start this, and then to be where he is now, where he could just, the doctors feel comfortable with him leaving and getting on a plane and going back to Buffalo and being in a hospital there. Just really continuously, it's always about steps forward, and not having any setbacks or at least minimizing those setbacks. And so far it seems like he's been recovering super well, and just a great work. Truly not enough can be said about the training staff and the people who were able to respond and do what they need to do to keep him going. And of course, just the hospital being able to take care of him and do what they need to do. And we're just all very glad to have him back in Buffalo, and glad that he is doing well and continuing to do well.
Yeah, just great stuff. Very, very reassuring stuff. And I think, again, let's just get into, I guess, the actual takeaways from the game here. And I also just want to say, I used to say this a lot more often than I do now. I do not know how long this show is going to be tonight. I used to say, this could take a half an hour. This could take an hour and a half. Genuinely, this week, I do not know how long this is going to take, because on our outline, we don't have much to talk about. But I've also taken more notes this week than I have in a lot of weeks past, just writing down stuff. So it's going to be interesting, and you guys are in for the ride in chat. So let's get into our brief takeaways from this Buffalo Bills win over the New England Patriots, a win in which they clinched the AFC's number 2 seed, which, and with how the Bengals game ended, that's all, the seeding and everything is out of whack. So that is a different story for a different time. All that we know now, or all that we need to know right now, or all that is important to this particular conversation, is that the Bills are the number 2 seed in the AFC because they beat the Patriots yesterday. Again, a 35-23 victory. Josh Allen finishing the game 19 of 31 for 254 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Again, a Josh Allen game, right? That interception was what are you doing? Tony Romo. Yeah. Tony Romo might be a bigger Josh Allen fan than I am. I feel like Tony Romo just makes a lot of excuses for Josh Allen.
Go off the sauce yesterday.
A little bit. Well, Tony Romo often is, a bit of a mad lad with his commentary. He and Jim Nantz, in particular, were a little excited yesterday. Quite loud, if you will. Quite, really, really weren't hiding their voices.
Someone needed to give Tony Romo a glass of water and an ibuprofen.
Right.
Just settle down, dude.
He's a big Josh Allen
fan. Who isn't? Probably a lot of people.
Yes, numerous people.
But I thought it was a great. Well, I shouldn't say great. It was a Josh, like you said. This was a quintessential Josh Allen game. There were, there was that miss to Gabe Davis in the end zone. There was the interception that was just eat the sack and let's kick a field goal. It's not that big a deal. Yeah. But then he uncorks not 1, but 2 ungodly throws that him and maybe Mahomes, maybe Justin Herbert can accomplish. And I'm not totally sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, just unbelievable. That first throw to John Brown was, and what a catch by John Brown. It gave me immediate flashbacks to the touchdown catch that he had against the Broncos in 2019, which I think was the only touchdown of that game. Gosh, just such a great play, and just totally unexpected, right? In fact, it was so unexpected that CBS threw up the number 16 graphic, which still had a New York Giants legend, Isaiah Hodgins, right there for everyone to see. Maybe that's the young up-and-coming wide receiver that Skip Bayless was referring to earlier.
It's legitimately almost has to be. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, Skip Bayless was talking earlier today on Undisputed. That's his show, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Right, yeah. He was on Undisputed, and he was talking about Josh Allen. He was talking about Josh Allen And again, these two throws that we are talking about, and he in particular mentioned the one to John Brown, and he goes, like that Brown kid who's turning out to be a star. He's going to be a star. And it's like, John Brown is 33 years old. Like
33 years old. He's been on like 6 different teams in his entire NFL career.
How many professional contracts has John Brown signed? Numerous.
Listen to that.
I mean, I guess he can still break out. I wouldn't bank on it. But, Skip Bayless is known for...
possible. It's
Skip
not
Bayless
possible.
Is a smart sports guy.
It's not possible to have a national show and be so freaking ignorant about sports. It's not... It shouldn't be possible.
I don't want to go on this rant, but like for years, I was one of the people who was like, no, support the corporations, like support the big sports guys. I was like, there's no reason to watch Buffalo Bills football, right? Like, do I care? do I care that Stephen A. Smith said Darcel Marius? No, it was funny, and he doesn't.
That's funny. No, that's reason. Funny. Saying Darcel Marius is a very human error.
Objectively funny.
Especially Stephen A. Smith saying it.
Yeah.
But saying that, John
But there's
Brown...
no excuse. There's no excuse for this, Skip. There's no excuse. It's hilarious. Bad all around. But no, you're right. That throw was crazy. Not as impressive to me. And again, me being the all-seeing, quarterback guru expert that I am, I thought his most impressive throw was the one to Stefon Diggs where he was on the opposite hash and threw it. What? Yeah. Like, how many yards down the field on a rope for a beautiful touchdown? Just, again, not just a Josh Allen throw. That's just what he does.
Opposite hash.
Yeah.
All the way down the field. No. Just in the bucket, in stride. Could not believe how perfect that pass was. Unbelievable.
You know what's also crazy? Like the last couple of, I was just doing research before the show, which may shock people, but I was doing some research, was looking at some numbers. Stefon Diggs, right? I think we can all say that for one reason or another, whatever, you want to blame it on Ken Dorsey, you want to blame it on Allen's struggles, whatever. His second half of the season was not as good as his first half of the season. I think had they played that 17th game, had they played against the Bengals, he would have bested his career best. He would have had a higher receiving total this year than he did in 2020, which was his, career high, right. Which you can make the argument of, well, yeah, he would have played in one more game. And it's like, well, yes, but like this year, he played in one fewer game or one less game than he did last year, and he still had like 200 more receiving yards. So like Stefon Diggs had an incredible year this year. And I feel like a lot of people might kind of forget about that just because of how uneventful the second half of it was for him and how uninvolved he was in the offense for some stretches. But just you look at the numbers, he had an incredibly productive year this year. And that's just kind of my takeaway there from Stefon Diggs. Just an incredible game or incredible season. And again, an incredible game from him yesterday. That throw from Josh was. So let's talk about just our takeaways, I guess, from this game, because we each only have one. And I guess for me, my takeaway is this is undoubtedly the most emotional football game I have ever watched. And I mean, I very much hope it ends up being the most emotional football game that I ever watched because, I love football. It's not meant to be this emotional, but that is what was so special about it. Right. That is what made the game so special and so memorable, is because it's games like this that make you remember that football is if football has the potential to be, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. You just look at, again, the circumstances leading up to this game, right? And how everyone came together in support of Damar Hamlin after what happened on Monday. And then as the week progresses and you start to hear more reassuring news, and then you see Damar Hamlin yesterday had recovered to the point that he is live tweeting the game and he FaceTimed his teammates, before the game. Just incredible news coming out. And then you just see how that impacts all the players going into the game, that energy in that stadium before the game. And then to see all of that culminate and an opening kick return touchdown from Nyheim Hines. Just, again, storybook stuff, as Jim Nantz said. He said it perfectly. Like, regardless of how you felt about his commentary, he said it perfectly. You cannot make that stuff up. And people tweeted, like, if you wrote that in a Hollywood script, it would have gotten sent back because it's too unrealistic. And that's genuinely true. But again, it's stuff like this that makes you remember why we watch football in the first place, right? Like, it is the emotions. It's what football makes us feel. And this is why, I guess, in sports in general, it's what it makes us feel. And that's why we watch it. So I guess that's really my only takeaway from this game. Like, again, it was cool to see Josh Allen make those throws. It was cool that the Bills beat the Patriots, and it's cool that I don't ever care about the Patriots anymore at this point. I mean, what a turnaround that has been. But, like, the reason why I'm going to remember this game is how it made me feel.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, I agree that I don't necessarily care about the Patriots anymore. But I do really still enjoy beating them, especially when, like, it's this type of game when they are trying to fight for a playoff spot and you just get to smash them into the dirt. It's just, it's a very deeply satisfying feeling, because it's not the first time they've done that. It's the first time they did it to the Patriots, but 2 years ago they did it to the Dolphins, when the Dolphins were fighting for their playoff lives, and the Dolphins couldn't do anything for the first half when the Bills were playing their starters, and then they put in their backups and absolutely kept annihilating them. But regardless of all of that, it's just watching that all happen. I mean, frankly, it's astounding that they were playing in this game, period. I mean, I understand all of the relief that was felt seeing how Damar Hamlin was progressing day by day, and obviously they got to talk to him and interact with him, and I'm sure that really helped clear a lot of their minds and just sort of relieve them a little bit. But there's also just, like, I mean, you have somebody like Trey White, who after the game was talking about how he still sees that every time he closes his eyes. He sees that whole thing unfolding before him, and that's very understandable. It's a traumatic thing to see any person, much less somebody that you know and that you have been playing this game with for a couple years now, to just be in that sort of position. And I think that there's going to be players, and Trey White included, and others, who will probably still be struggling to fully process all of this for a while, and that's understandable. And good for someone like Trey White for just being open about that and talking about that in that way. He's always been a very, like, emotional person, so it's understandable that he would want to talk about this and express himself in this way. But this might be something that takes a little bit of time to fully process. I don't think it's a distraction at this point, and I think winning this game kind of proved that it's not going to be a distraction moving forward, especially winning the game the way that they did. I mean, you look back, I mean, they scored 35 points, 21 on offense, 14 on special teams. In their first game against the Patriots, they scored 24 points, all on offense. This is a very good defense, and it's actually kind of an underrated storyline of the NFL, of how good this Patriots defense has been. Unfortunately, just being wasted by a unbelievably bad and poorly run offense.
Right, by Matt Patricia.
By Matt Patricia and Joe Judge.
Matt Patricia still thwarting the Patriots defense.
Oh my God. But it is worth noting that, like, their offensive output was more or less the same. They were, I guess, more successful running the football in that first Patriots game versus this game, where they were more successful passing the football. Again, really, honestly, outside of the Devin Singletary fumble and the Josh Allen interception, was a very good game by the offense, quite frankly. And there were some frustrations, I think, and someone indicated sort of how I felt a little bit. And if I find it, oh my gosh, how am I not finding? There we go. Ned Ryerson said, was anyone else screaming just to run the ball by the fourth quarter? Yes, Ned, yes, I was. If you go back on the tweets that I had during the game, I think at one point I just said, God damn it, Ken, just run the fucking ball.
Like, nope.
Yeah. And throughout most of the game, through 3/4 of the game, they found success passing the ball. So there was no real need to run the football. I wasn't sitting there going like, oh, they need to get Devin Singletary and James Cook involved, in the second or third quarter or whatever. They were doing well throwing the ball. That was not an issue. But it was just like, it's the fourth quarter. You have a lead. Please, for the love of God, just run the ball.
Yeah.
But if that is my only major criticism of this game plan, so be it. Yeah, sometimes that happens. I think that it was overall a really just phenomenal job by the Bills overall, but especially just not just one kick return touchdown, but two. That's insane. And they said it on the broadcast. The last time that happened was Leon Washington with the Seahawks in 2010 against the Chargers, which, by the way, that was Carroll's first season as the Seahawks head coach, 2010.
Wow.
That was his first season, and he is still going in the year of our Lord 2023.
Good for him.
Matt Hasselbeck was still quarterbacking the Seahawks, and Marshawn Lynch had not been traded from the Buffalo Bills to the Seahawks at that point.
Oh man, so they're still like a ways out from Matt Flynn, from the Matt Flynn to back.
Yeah.
Fun. Well, Seahawks fans, you're in for a run there. Leon Washington just setting you up for it. But no, this transitions into your takeaway here with Nyheim Hines and how we should maybe build a statue of Nyheim Hines outside of the new stadium. That's what you're saying.
That is absolutely what I'm saying. It's what the people are saying, quite frankly. I mean, that was there was someone, I can't remember who exactly, who likened that first kick return touchdown to the Steve Gleason blocked punt for the Saints against the Falcons when the Superdome opened up after Hurricane Katrina in 2006. And obviously there's very different circumstances between the two.
Right.
But it had that same sort of just like manic energy of like, oh my God, I can't believe that actually just happened.
Yeah.
The way that it did. It's just a surreal moment. And McDermott and others really said the same thing, that it was just surreal. I mean, Josh Allen is going up and down the sideline saying God is real. I mean, that's just like there's almost really no real good way to describe this. I mean, it was just like I really couldn't believe what I was watching. The bar that I go to watch Bills games is a Bills bar, and first of all, that bar was way more crowded than it's been in a little bit, and for good reason.
Yeah.
But when that play happened, I don't know that I've ever quite seen that place go quite as crazy as they did then. I mean, that was just wild. Yeah, so Nyheim Hines, statue. Build it. Let's go. Get on it, yeah. Ralph Wilson.
All right. Ralph Wilson Sr., you're in the chat. Come on.
That's right.
But no, like, just... I think that really is all that needs to be said about that. Is just an incredible game, incredible moment. Just a lot of like, I can't believe I just watched that happen moments, and we were all there to see them. So I think that wraps up Patriots talk. Again, the game itself was a football game, but again, it's the moments that we're going to remember. And the Bills finished the season 13-3, and Let's talk about their actual playoff game now. We're only a half an hour in. There again, certainly nothing that you're going to turn this podcast off to go watch
Definitely
right now.
not
So let's
right
talk
now.
about
Definitely not right now.
let's talk about the Buffalo Bills upcoming playoff matchup with the Miami Dolphins. Again, as we said at the top of the show, that here, this is their third matchup this season. They are 1-1 against the Dolphins this year, but as we did when we talked about the last time the Bills played the Dolphins, you kind of have to look. I don't want to say throw out the week 3 game because, again, it was a game that happened. It's a game that counts against the Bills record and it counts as a win for Miami. But I mean, look, we're both here right now, so whatever. But just like the circumstances surrounding that game were so strange, and it's kind of difficult to take out. I mean, we've said this the whole time, David. It's difficult to take out anything concrete out of that game, just given the injuries the Bills had, the weather, all of that stuff.
I mean, it was, it's hard to really gauge anything from that first game for both sides, really, because the Bills dropped at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And they went on multiple just super long drives, and in particular that 18-19 play drive, that just doesn't happen in the NFL. Yeah. It just doesn't. And especially doesn't happen when it's 110 degrees with 1,000,000,000% humidity.
Right.
So you kind of feel like, all right, well, that's not going to happen. And then, you also have the fact that Tua was, this was the start of the Tua concussion saga, unfortunately. Right. And, it was clear that he was not, totally 100% during that game in the second half. And so you kind of just say, okay, well, he didn't perform well in that game because of the concussion. The Bills kind of just couldn't finish a drive, and so you kind of throw that game out, and then you look at this past game, right, in Buffalo with all of the cold weather, the snow coming at the end, and both sides played very, very well. I mean, it was extremely back and forth. It was just a great game to watch, and ultimately the Bills were able to come out in front. And quite frankly, the Bills weren't that far away from kind of being in full control of that game, had it not been for a really stupid, bad Cam Lewis penalty and sort of unfortunate Josh Allen fumble from a Jalen Phillips sack. I think the Bills probably have more control of that game than it probably seems. I mean, they really kind of unfortunately fell asleep in the quarter and then were able to come back and make it work in the fourth quarter. But, these are two good teams. The difference is that the Bills have been far more consistent in the last 2 months of the season. Mm-hmm. The Dolphins have just been, pun fully intended, barely staying above water. I mean, they were 8-3 at one point, and all they needed was one win to clinch. And it took until the last week of the last minute of that game against the Jets to actually clinch that game. And they still don't know if Tua is going to be playing or not. He's still in concussion protocol. You still have Raheem Mostert, who obviously had a great game in that second game against the Bills. He has a broken thumb. I imagine he'd play through that.
I think McDaniel has come out and said it's seriously going to be like a game time thing, because I think McDaniel already said he will need to get it surgically repaired this week.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be a wait and see how it progresses throughout the week type thing. But that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough.
It'll be tough. I imagine that he'd push through that, and they just kind of monitor what his pain tolerance is.
Yeah.
With him and Jeff Wilson. So I don't know. It just sort of seems like the Dolphins are very, very cold right now. Obviously, I mean,
wish it were colder. Wish it were
colder. What are you gonna do? But I mean, your only win in the last 6 games was against the Jets, and it was 9-6. I don't know how you feel confident about your team coming into this game, quite frankly. And it's, the defense remains poor. The Josh Boyer just, I feel like is just sort of waiting to be fired at this point. Remember the offseason when they said, when Dolphins fans were like, oh yeah, they still have Josh Boyer and he was the one calling defensive plays last year. The defense is going to be great, just like it was last year. Yeah. So that didn't happen. And I don't know. There's part of me that feels like McDaniel, I think, is a really good play designer, and I think can be a really good play caller when he wants to be. And there's times where it just feels like he has this weird chip on his shoulder and just wants to prove to everyone how much of a genius he is. Like, heck yeah, I can win with Skylar Thompson throwing the football. I'm not even going to try to run the football with him or anyone else. Matter. Like, okay, but why?
Why are you making it harder on yourself?
This is just, of course, this is just armchair psychoanalyzing on my part. I don't understand Josh McDaniel's psychology, and to be honest,
I don't think anyone does.
I'm not sure. And that is part of the mystique of Mike McDaniel. That all being said, I do think that, it's the playoffs and anything can happen in the playoffs. And I'm sure the Bills understand that. They know that. They've experienced that just in the last couple of years. I think that they will ultimately win this game because I just where's the biggest threat, right, has to be Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But if it's
on paper, in theory.
On paper. But if it's Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater that are the ones who have to go in this game, I don't really care about the Dolphins passing game at that point. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater can find some measure of consistency, but he's not going to fully utilize Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Oh my God, they have Pentatonic singing the national anthem. That's a disgrace.
But there's nothing's going on right now. No other football game is going on.
Nothing's going on. Nothing is going on. Keep watching. Thank you for tuning into the Cover One Roundup, all 68 of you. Hey, that was my number in high school. Love that.
Hey, shout out.
Shout out. Shout out to my high school.
Shout out David.
Anyway. Yeah, I just, outside of the Hill and Waddle matchup, what else about this Dolphins team really makes you fearful of them, right? Like, their secondary when they're healthy is good, but like Xavier Howard has not been great.
He has not been Xavier Howard this year. Nick Needham's out. Byron Jones hasn't played.
Yeah, and Javon Holland is a great safety.
Very good.
But he can only do so much for this team, especially when on every third down, Josh Boyer's pure instinct is, I'm going to send the absolute house. Is it going to work? No, but it makes me feel good.
It's incredible. Garbage Al writes, any update on that young superstar for the Bills? I believe they call him John Brown. Will he play for us on Sunday? Garbage Al, we gave you tweet a shout out early.
Thank you.
It's hilarious. But just like
this does bring up a quick question. With regard to practice squad call-ups, right? Does that matter anymore? Who has or hasn't? They all reset. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Cole Beasley can come back, baby. That's what we've all been clamoring for.
Love it.
Okay. But like before we get into the actual numbers here, let's just do like okay, I should probably tell the chat what we're doing. So we're previewing the Bills Dolphins game, and then we're just going to go over, I mean, like you said, David, what does give us concerns? And I have some numbers to kind of back up some stuff here. But before we do that, let's just take a deeper look into this Dolphins 9-8 record, because I don't want to say it's deceiving, because I do think they're a good team. I think they're a talented team. But again, you look at it and it's like, okay, I understand you play the teams on your schedule, but now that I'm looking at your schedule, I don't necessarily know if it's a fair representation or no. Honestly, it might be a very fair representation of who they are as a team. So they start 3-3, right, with wins over New England, Baltimore, and Buffalo. I mean, you start with a win over New England, good. And then that Baltimore game was a crazy game in week 2. I know that was weeks ago, but that was a crazy win in week 2, a great win. And then the Buffalo win, whatever. All right. And then they lose against Cincinnati, the Jets, and Minnesota. Not bad losses. Okay. Like Cincinnati, that's a perfectly fine, acceptable loss. The Jets at that time, they lose 40-17. The Dolphins do. But again, that's a team at that time when the Jets are kind of surging a little bit. The Jets are like, are we going to talk about the Jets as a legitimate playoff team? And then Minnesota, would finish, what is the 2 seed in the NFC? Like, they're a good team, kind of. Okay, but now you look at the 5 wins they rattle off in a row in Miami. Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Detroit.
At that time, they were bad, and they ended up surging by the end, but bad Pittsburgh. And we know that because the Bills also played bad Pittsburgh.
Bad Detroit. There was a time there when Detroit started good, putting up like 30 or 40 points a game, and then
and then also surrendering 30 or 40 points in a game.
Right. I think this was like people are questioning Dan Campbell time. Okay, and then they beat Chicago, Cleveland, bye week, and then Houston. Okay, do any of those 5 wins scream like great win from the Miami Dolphins? Like, no. I don't know. Okay, and then they go on their 5-game losing streak. To again, all good teams that they lose to, sans New England there, but like they lose to San Francisco. Again, fair loss, fine loss.
The 2 seed.
The Chargers, fine loss. Buffalo, okay, fine loss. Green Bay, perfectly fine loss. Like, and then they lose to New England and then they beat the Jets, right? So like, I think looking at this, it's like, okay, they beat who they should beat. They lose to who they should lose to. And I think that's a fair representation of the Dolphins this year. And just looking at on paper, what this game is between the Bills and the Dolphins, I think regardless of who the Dolphins have at quarterback this week, again, it'll be interesting to see how the week progresses. Mike McDaniel said today that Tua still has not been cleared for football activities. And obviously they're going to need news sooner rather than later. As they game plan for a playoff game, they will need to know Tua's availability.
And that is part of it, right? It's like, even if he does clear by Wednesday, right? I mean, you're only getting 2 days of practice and a walkthrough. I mean, and he hasn't played in a couple weeks. Is Tua somebody who can just sort of come in cold and make it work in Buffalo? And that's the other thing. Again, this game is in Buffalo, and I mean, I have not looked at the
snows in Alabama, guys.
It does in fact snow in the state of Alabama. But I don't know, man. This just does not seem like a favorable matchup for the Dolphins. I don't know how you feel good about this. I don't know how you feel any sort of confidence. And I'm sure the players themselves, feel like, all right, we earned this playoff spot. They could have easily just sort of, tucked their tails and gone into the offseason and sort of eaten it. But now they have their shot. And they probably feel like it doesn't matter what all just happened before we won that Jets game. Now we have a shot. And, I'm sure Mike McDaniel will find a way to get these guys fired up and confident. But how far is that really going to take you against this Bills team? I can't imagine it's going to matter so much that they end up winning this game. Or, to be perfectly honest, I'm not even sure this is a close game.
Really?
This defense is in special teams, even though they got the better of the Bills the last time around, just is not a good unit. And if they somehow manage to poop the bed against a Danny Crossman-led unit, again, I'm going to lose my mind a little bit. But regardless of that, I do think, and I think that Ken Dorsey has been better the last couple of weeks overall. And I think it's just going to be a good game for the Bills. And I think that they, they're certainly more experienced than the Dolphins when it comes to the playoffs. My God, who would have thought that a Bills team would be experienced with the playoffs?
They played a lot of playoff football.
They have.
That's weird to say.
A lot of good playoff football, too. This isn't like the Andy Dalton Bengals who played a bunch of wild card games at 1 p.m. on a Sunday, which is when this game will take place, which I think is a good thing for the Bills. But this is a team that's played early games in the playoffs. They've played late games. They've played road games. They've done it all, right? Like they know how to do this, and I'm very, very confident in a Bills win and a pretty resounding Bills type of win. There are, obviously this Bills team is not perfect. The injuries have certainly taken their toll, especially in the secondary and in the pass rush, and those two things have definitely affected each other overall. However, I think when you have guys like Stephon Diggs and Dawson Knox, who's obviously come on late, and you have a good duo pair of running backs with James Cook and Devin Singletary, there's only so much that a sort of tired and beat up Dolphins team can do.
I think I agree. I think maybe I agree. Let's look into the numbers. Okay, that's what we're here for. We're a deep numbers analytics podcast.
Very much.
So, as you said earlier, David, when we're talking about concerns, specifically about the Miami Dolphins, you have to be at least concerned about the idea of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, right?
Yes.
You look at the last time the Bills played the Dolphins, Jalen Waddle had 3 receptions for 114 yards and 1 touchdown. Tyreek Hill had 9 receptions for 69 yards and 1 touchdown. You look at their respective seasons, Waddle had 1,300 yards and 8 scores. Tyreek Hill had 1,700 yards and 7 scores. So, this is a duo that when Miami can maximize their production, I mean, they're a difficult duo to stop. For my money, the best 1-2 duo in football at receiver.
Yeah.
I know people might think, what about Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs? Do you remember before the season when people were like, Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis might be the best 1-2 in the NFL?
Well, as our pal Stephen Ruiz mentioned on, I believe it was One Bills Live, I mean, Gabe Davis can do it all. He's got
what
that.
Did he say?
That was it the gumption? I just remember the shimmy and the shake in his route running or something. It was
something
that.
in it, yeah, something at the top of his routes, his gumption at the top of his routes, or something like that. It's something that starts with a G. Regardless, I'm gonna say Waddle and Hill take the cake there. But just again, when they can maximize it, it's great. But they haven't been able to really maximize it in recent weeks, at least when compared to early in the season. So you look at, I want to give a shout out here to Chris Kepner, right? In the Cover One chat earlier today, it provided us these stats. Miami's last 5 games with Tua. They had an offensive DVOA ranked 27th in the NFL, a pass DVOA ranked 21st, and a run DVOA ranked 22nd. Their last 2 games without Tua. Offensive DVOA ranked 17th, pass DVOA of 13th, rush DVOA of 20th. So, again, I don't even want to compare which quarterback is giving them the more productive offense, because bottom line, it hasn't been productive in recent weeks, right? That's the takeaway.
We're not here to try and play should Skylar Thompson be starting over Tua if Tua is healthy?
Bottom line, it's not really being all that productive. And Douglas writes here, how healthy are Hill and Waddle going to be? Both have had some injury trouble. And that's another thing. This Dolphins team in general is so banged up.
Yeah.
I was just looking at their injury report. My God, if this team had no injury luck, or this team didn't have bad injury luck, it'd have no injury luck at all. I mean, Tua going through his stuff. Tyreek Hill is battling stuff. Jalen Waddle's been battling injuries. Teron Armstead. Again, I don't think Byron Jones has played this year. It's just crazy.
I really don't think he has. I'm not sure.
I genuinely don't think he has. Just crazy stuff. But it's going to be, again, the idea of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill is scary. but in practice, at least in recent weeks, it hasn't really matched up to the perceived fear. So, like, I'm still worried about it, but I'm not, I guess, going to lose sleep over it. Though I do want to talk about their running offense here, their rush offense, because the last game that the Bills did play against the Dolphins, Raheem Mostert was running all over them. And like, had Mike McDaniel, I mean, like you said earlier, David, sometimes Mike McDaniel just likes to decide that he's smarter than everyone else and likes to give himself a challenge and make it harder on himself. Again, Raheem Mostert had 136 rushing yards on 17 attempts. He was averaging 8 yards a carry. And Mike McDaniel just decided, I don't want to run the ball anymore. I want to pass it now. It's like, what? Okay. And the Bills missed 9 tackles in that game against the run. 10 total, 9 against the run. So, like, this was a game the last time that the Bills played the Dolphins where Raheem Mostert was just running all over them, and the Bills could not tackle him, could not tackle the run, or, the running backs in general. So just not a great favorable thing. And again, run defense is a thing that the Bills have struggled with at times this year. And I guess, again, you can bring up that Raheem Mostert currently dealing with a thumb injury that needs surgery. We'll see if he even plays on Sunday. But like, even if he doesn't, Jeff Wilson is not a scrub. Jeff Wilson is still a good running back that a dude like Mike McDaniel can do a lot with. So I guess, like, again, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on paper, certainly the scarier names, but given what we've seen, given what we have seen when the Bills play the Dolphins, I am more concerned about their potential rushing attack, I guess.
I mean, there's reason to be concerned. It's not, even if Raheem Mostert is out, Jeff Wilson is not a scrub either, especially in this particular style of offense that has just maximized whatever running back they kind of throw in there. But I do think that, as long the Bills' struggles in the run game really comes from 2 different things, right? Some of it is just not being in their right run fits, or just sort of weird timing on when they decide to run blitz. And then the other part of it is just tackling, right? I mean, tackling early on in that second Dolphins game was not good. It was very, very bad, as we already said. But those are also like very fixable things, generally speaking. Like, you can tackle better, or at least have your team rally to the ball a little bit better, play the edge a little bit better. And I think if your run fits a little better, I think it becomes easier to make those tackles coming in from or even just like forcing a running back to stop and hesitate rather than continue his momentum through a tackle. It really just starts with them playing sound football up front and being in position, setting the edge appropriately, and not just completely overshooting their gaps and going right upfield and creating havoc. I do. It's a concern, but again, I don't think it's so much of a concern that this is the way the Dolphins win this game. And if the Dolphins don't win the game that way, then they're just not going to win the game.
Well, okay, so I'm going to pose a question to you. I'm not asking what you would do. I'm asking what you think Mike McDaniel is going to do, which again is a difficult question. But do you think that he watches the tape from the last time that the Bills and Dolphins played, and he's kind of admits like, okay, maybe I should have just kept running the ball, or do you think he's like, nope, I'm gonna do what I want to do again?
I think that there are. I think there's some merit to the idea of him looking at that and saying that maybe he probably should run the ball more into that live game scenario. Sometimes just your instincts take over and you just get into that mode or zone, and you don't have those if you don't set up the guardrails, you can't use them, and you kind of just go a little nutso and crazy. You just sort of do whatever you want. You live off of vibes, basically.
That's how I live. That's what I'm doing
but ultimately, I don't know. I just don't see this Dolphins team as a threat to the Bills season at this point. And,
I think that is fair.
Gosh. Yeah.
You good out here?
I'm good. I'll manage.
Certainly nothing else that you could be watching. Okay.
No.
I want to look at this Dolphins defense because, again, it's another thing where it's like paper versus practice, right? Like, in theory, I like a lot of the names here that they have defensively. Yeah. I used to love Xavier Howard, but as you said earlier, David, really hasn't been Xavier Howard. Sure, he's been banged up. I think he just came back from injury last week. And again, even when he is on the field, he has not really been Xavier Howard. You look at some of the names, right? Christian Wilkins. We know how good of a player Christian Wilkins is. We know how interesting of a player Christian Wilkins is. You look at Bradley Chubb. Again, former top 5 pick who the Dolphins traded, a first-round draft pick for at the trade deadline? Maybe. I mean, I think he's been banged up as well, and he really hasn't been the player who they thought he was going to be. Jalen Phillips, an incredible talent, but just like, I don't really, and like you look at the last time that they played this Dolphins pass rush, it combined for 21 pressures against Josh Allen, but that was more of a game where the offensive line just really didn't show up for the Bills. But like, whatever, you got to give credit where credit is due. But again, just looking at what has happened in the past, right? Looking at the last time these two teams played in this stadium, and it was only a couple of weeks ago. So I think it's a pretty apt reference for us. The last game, the Bills put up 446 yards of offense. Allen completed 25 of 40 passes for 304 yards and 4 touchdowns. Okay. And you look at week 3, the Bills put up 497 net yards of offense. Allen passes for 400 yards. So the Bills have put up nearly 1,000 yards of offense against the Dolphins this year. Josh Allen has passed for over 700 yards against the Dolphins this year. Again, I like a lot of the names that the Dolphins have on defense. I like a lot of the players. I like a lot of the talent. I'm not very concerned entering this game because I have seen what Josh Allen and this Bills offense can do against this Dolphins defense.
Yeah, this defense just isn't good, man. There's talent, and this is sort of what I've said before. This is a talented defense that just is not playing well. And I guess technically you could say that makes them dangerous in a playoff scenario where maybe everything just sort of starts clicking for them. But also, if you couldn't do it in the regular season, I'm not exactly going to bank on you doing it in the postseason. I mean, what's going to change? Is Josh Boyer suddenly not going to blitz on every third down? Is Xavier Howard somehow just going to flick a switch and turn it on? Why did he not do it before if that was the case? This is not an again, this is a rivalry game. Games can get weird. This is a playoff game, and playoff games can get weird. But you know what? There's only so much that can do. That can only take you so far. And it feels like the Bills are a better team almost across the board. I mean, and especially defensively against or offensively against the Dolphins defense, Fundex can beat anyone. I mean, that's the type of recruit that he is. Gabe Davis, although he's had his struggles, when he can be on, a really good complement to Stephon Diggs. The real question to me is going to be what happens with slot receiver because, Khalil Shakir made a nice play, but it was really only one play. And Isaiah McKenzie is Isaiah McKenzie because he's been Isaiah McKenzie for the last 7 years, and that hasn't changed. So, again, I think this becomes more of a pointing towards Dawson Knox type of game, where you use him a little bit more in the slot and you use him a little bit more as a receiver. It becomes more of a James Cook game where, again, you use him more as a receiver. You try and check down and get him in space against some of these linebackers who aren't the most fleet of foot, are not the best in coverage. There's answers. And, I understand that Ken Dorsey may not be the favorite person amongst Bills fans at the moment. But I also think that he's not an idiot. And he put together 2 games against the Dolphins. That first game plan, they had like 500 yards of offense.
They did, yeah.
They just couldn't get it finished in the red zone and get touchdowns. And that was a problem early on in the season, and that has gotten better as the season has gone on. And then you get to this second game. Sure, they fell asleep in the third quarter, but outside of that, they played really well on offense. They played really well on offense, and it was a good plan. They were very aggressive. It wasn't just a bunch of dink and dunk sort of stuff. It was really good. They weren't afraid of attacking a very aggressive defense. That's what you want, if you ask me. So it's very hard for me to find a way to really beat the Bills. Truly, and I think this has been the case throughout the whole season. The only way the Bills lose this game is if the Bills give this game away. If the Bills beat themselves, that's how the Bills lose.
Yeah, well, that's they've done that almost a few times. I'm trying to think.
They did that against Minnesota. They did that against the Jets.
Yes, they did.
I mean, it's not like that's not a possibility, but even at times when they do self-sabotage a bit, like they did yesterday against the Patriots, that Devin Singletary fumble only turned into a field goal, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And then right after that, touchdown, right? Am I getting this sequence of events correct?
I'm not entirely sure because you cut out there for a second, so I'm not. I don't know what
after the Patriots field goal, was the subsequent play the second Nyheim Hines touchdown?
May have been. That adds up. That would make sense.
So then the defense had to be on the field for like 3 straight possessions. And they still got it done.
Yes. Second kickoff return. Yes.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you all. All right.
And look, this defense is this defense I do. Just for the playoffs as a whole, I'm not concerned about this defense against this Dolphins team with Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater or a very cold, unpracticed Tua Tagovailoa. Maybe I live to regret those words, but frankly, so be it.
So this is going to be an interesting podcast next week for one of 2 reasons, right? We're either going to be sitting here like, yeah, that went exactly as expected, or like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do?
We're going to be the victims of some sort of Dolphins social media blast.
That'll be fun. That'll be a great time. I'll just put my Twitter back on private, which I had to take it off today so I could tweet this out. Very sad development. All right. Moving forward, it's time for everyone's favorite segment. It's True or Rubbish.
Let's see if it's true or rubbish. Let's go.
Let's go. This is the segment where I give David a number of statements, and he tells me whether they are true or rubbish. It's very self-explanatory. I only have 3 here today, so I would like to, open this to the chat. If you have any true or rubbishes that you would like us to be, you would like David to answer, right? Because I'm just the reader, right? Then yeah. Put yours in the chat and I'll propose it to him. But until then, let's just get through mine. So, David, are you ready?
Let's do it.
True or rubbish? Josh Allen continues his impressive play against the Dolphins and throws for over 300 yards on Sunday.
True.
This was true all after all. Can't believe it. It was true.
Was that
I think we're
too low?
No. I think that we're going to be treated yet again to another edition of Playoff Josh. And I, for one, am looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be pretty fun. I am very much excited to see what Josh Allen does in this postseason. I think he continues his streak of phenomenal performances against the Dolphins.
It's an interesting dichotomy here entering this game because we kind of have a number of forces conflicting each other, right? We have wild card round Josh Allen, wild card against division rival Josh Allen, Josh Allen versus Dolphins Josh Allen, right? Those are like three heavily, three things that would heavily suggest a strong game, but it's also 1 p.m. Josh Allen. So like how heavily does that kind of weigh against it? Or does it not? Are we still saying big game here for Josh?
I think big game.
Big game. I would agree. True or rubbish? Taron Johnson had a big game yesterday. He did. True or rubbish? Taron Johnson is the best nickel cornerback in the NFL.
True.
This was true all after all. Can't believe it. It was true.
I mean, who else is he going against exactly?
Kenny Moore is a name that you could throw in there.
True.
That's really the only one who I think.
When Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was on the Saints and he played nickel for them, I guess you could say him. But now that he's on the Eagles, he's been playing safety for them. I don't know. I feel like Taron Johnson. It's not just that he's the best nickel corner in the NFL. What they ask of Taron Johnson to do, basically being the third linebacker in this defense because they play so much nickel, and they ask him to be super physical in the run game. It's pretty impressive. What they ask of this 5'9",
5'9",
right?
Yeah, let me look him up. Let me look up his.
He's like 5'9", 181.
Measurable,
I think. He is not the biggest dude, and he is so physical and so willing to just attack in the run game and the pass game. He's a very, very impressive corner, and someone that's been just, I don't know about underrated across the league, because I don't think most people know outside of their own team who nickel corners are. But he's just been phenomenal for them.
This website is lying. I'm sorry. NFL.com states that Taron Johnson is 5'11", 192 pounds. I'm sorry. No shot Taron Johnson is 5'11". There is no shot. Again, I've said this 100 times on this podcast. I was with the Bills in the 2018 season, which was Taron Johnson's rookie year. So I interviewed Taron Johnson a number of times. I have grown a couple of inches since I was there in 2018. I was much taller than Taron Johnson. So I was probably like 5'11" when I was there, and I was much taller than Taron Johnson. He is not 5'11". Okay. Whatever. I just got pissed at. Am I new to football? I'm getting mad at websites just lying about people's heights. Jesus, this isn't Tinder, Kyle. You can't get mad about it. Okay. I agree, though. No, it is like even if right. Let's pretend that he's 5'11", 100 and something pound, 190. Mm-hmm. That's impressive. Like they essentially ask him to be a linebacker, right? Like, and that's a tall task to ask of somebody, even of that fake frame. That's a tall task to ask of someone, and he really does, answer the call. So good for him. True or rubbish? James Cook should be the lead back in the committee as we enter the playoffs.
Rubbish.
That is rubbish all after all. It was all rubbish.
I think it is very unnecessary and wildly reactionary to say that Devin Singletary should not be the lead back for this team coming into the playoffs. I understand Devin Singletary had a bad game yesterday. Not a good game. But he's been good all year. He just has. And I think that taking him away from the lead back role in this committee does nothing to help this run game. I don't think it helps James Cook. I think that the way that they've been splitting the running back carries down the stretch has been really, really good. And I think this Devin Singletary game yesterday is more a blip on the radar than anything else. I think that he will be very good in this game.
Though
with whatever carries he gets.
Right. Though I don't disagree, right? I don't really have an opinion on this. I'm just the question writer. I did not write the question thinking that Devin Singletary had a bad game yesterday. I wrote the question, like fumble aside, I wrote the question thinking that James Cook had another good game. I don't necessarily think Devin Singletary has done anything to lose the leading role in the committee. I just think I've seen enough from James Cook at this point to, all things considered, right? You're looking at contracts and you're just looking at athletic profile and what James Cook offers athletically that a guy like Devin Singletary does not. Mm-hmm. I'm ready to increase James Cook's usage here, to increase his role a little bit. And also if Roy Collins gets it right. Yes.
Yeah. Josh Allen will be the lead back in the playoffs, says Roy Collins. It's probably not that far off, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. And we did get somebody to submit a true or rubbish. Bill writes, true or rubbish. Hines returns another punt for a touchdown. Or we'll go another kick/punt. Setting a new record. True or rubbish, David?
I am going to let my hatred and spite of Danny Crossman fuel me here. And I'm going to say true.
This was true.
I'm saying true.
After all, can't believe it. It was true.
I love it.
It's totally possible, right? It's totally possible.
Right. 2000 it's true, rubbish. I was going to say rubbish, right? Just because, like, it's very statistically improbable that he does it again, right? That he returns another one to the house. But also, it was statistically improbable that he did it twice in one game, and look at what he did. And also, Danny Crossman.
Yeah.
Get Danny Crossman out of here. Like, how? Seriously, do people just not care enough about special teams coordinators that, like, once you are in your job, you're kind of safe unless you are, like, egregiously bad, which one could argue Danny Crossman is?
Kyle, it's the NFL. You know that who you are matters much more than your actual job skills.
Are you telling me that this is not a meritocracy? Like, what?
That's not even remotely close, unfortunately.
Wow, that's crazy. All right. This podcast went a bit longer than I thought it would. So thank you all for watching. I do believe, and now that I think about it, I think there is a football game going on tonight. So maybe there might be. I don't know. I haven't checked. So if you want to go watch that, you can do that till like 9 o'clock when you come back and watch the Air Raid Hour here.
That's right.
Live on the Cover One YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to by clicking that big red button somewhere in that area. So yeah, click that. Make sure to subscribe to all the iTunes feeds. They're on iTunes, right? That's where you would find the iTunes feed. And then make sure to just, again, watch all of the shows, right? We got this show. We got the Air Raid Hour, which I talked about. We got the Film Room. We've got Going Deep. We've got Disguised Coverage. We've got Cover One Buffalo. We've got If the Walls Could Talk. We have all of these great shows. If I missed one or two, I very much apologize. I feel like a bad person. So I think that wraps up that. And also, you can check out, if I can find the graphic, Cover One Pass. Consider subscribing for just $57 a year. You get access to a bunch of great exclusive content, some of it written, some of it not. Just a bunch of great content that, again, is exclusive for $57 a year. I just reiterated it. You also get access to the Cover One Premium Slack. My chair is literally... I don't know if you're noticing, my chair is shrinking. I am going down. I'm going down with the ship. This is the Titanic.
I had to adjust my chair to its full height so I could actually be in camera.
I was at full height, and now I'm just... So now we just look like... We have roughly the same amount of headroom. You know what? Let's just go for it. Nope, my chair's all the way down already. Awesome. So Yes, Cover One Premium Slack. You can talk to all your favorite Cover One personalities whenever you want. We're all available right at the, you can just send us messages. That's how it works, I think. Make sure to check out our sponsors again, BetUS and Underdog Fantasy. Thank you so much for sponsoring this show and Cover One in general. I think I hit everything. I really do. I think I got everything first try, which is actually impressive. Make sure to follow David on Twitter at.
You can follow me at DFAUXY for some semi-emotional tweeting during a Bills game and maybe making fun of some other people and, piling onto Quay Walker discourse.
Awesome. Great. You can find me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.